Okay, so we're doing the Harbour Authority of Burnsville with June Hiscock, and she wanted me to come down and she wanted to go over a few items that's involved in the Harbour Authority. So first off, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you very much, Stephen.
Perfect. So I guess the main topic in which that everybody, I would say, is interested in is about the travel lift.
Yes, and the travel lift is of utmost importance to the Harbour Authority of Burgeo too, of course. The Harbour Authority of Burgeo does own the travel lift. I think earlier in the year there were some people wondering about who owned that travel lift, because I do believe the province provided the travel lift to the town of Burgeo. Some of us don't really know when, but in the late 70s, early 80s, that was put here for the use of the people, the boaters, the fishing industry, but all boaters who needed to come out of the water for whatever reason. So Harbour Authority of Burgeo purchased the travel lift from Joe Hiscock when he was giving up this business as a commercial property. And then I guess around that transition time, then the Harbour Authority was also, they'd been formed and incorporated since 2002, but by the time they bought the travel lift, it was maybe 2004, 2005, and then they sort of transitioned into this building and have been operating out of this building. I've been here for 12 years. I've been here since 2006. And in my time here with the travel lift, we have always had some issues. After it was provided to the Harbour Authority of Burgeo, it was used for the purpose that it was intended, but there's not a lot of big money here at the Harbour Authority, so there was never really anyone who could maintain that on a regular basis to make sure everything was always kept up to standard like it's supposed to be. Yeah, so over time, Stephen, things were breaking down and we would get it fixed and something else would break it. Well, usually it was something to do with the engine or the starter or these kinds of things. So anyway, through the jigs and the reels, this year we did discover that we do have some issues that we're not able to overcome. So then what we did was we purchased new tires. It needed new tires for a long time, so we purchased new tires and we purchased new straps, which is very, very good to have that for the machine. When the fella who was working on our machine changed the tires, we also found out that there were some, what would you call it? The integrity of the inside the tires, the rims, wheels, and axles were degraded and would need some looking after, would need some replacing and different kinds of things like that. And so that was discovered in one tire, which we thought we might be able to overcome that. But then as we kept working on it, it was discovered that we would need new rims, wheels, and axles for all four tires. And Stephen, Marine Travel Lift, who built this machine, are out of the United States. A lot of the parts come from the United States. It's a very old lift. We started to try to find quotes for these items that we needed. $40,000 plus freight plus tax to get those four sets of wheels, axles, and rims. We also then discovered that we did have a part of the structural, the big structural top of the machine as some deterioration as well. So there's nobody qualified in our community to actually do inspections. Inspections are very expensive. We've actually had a quote to have a fella come from BC. It would cost us $10,000 to have it inspected. Approximately, it's only a quote. It could go up, it could go down. You have to fly that person in, put them up in a hotel, all their travel costs, those kinds of things. The inspection itself was only $1,800, but all the other costs. We have been endeavoring to try to find other inspection quotes. Because if the structure on the top if the integrity of that is in question, then it may be that lift will be condemned. You know, many people come around the Harbour Authority when we're working with the travel lift. It's like a great spectator thing. People love to watch, and they all got their own opinions, kind of a thing. So, you know, I'm down here as a person. I've been managing the Harbour Authority for the past few years. Came on board as a volunteer first, and it's too big of an operation to be run by volunteers. And it became necessary to have someone be paid for part of the year to do the bookkeeping, but also the management of all of these other things. We've had several projects as well as the travel lift. The travel lift is the most important thing here. And there are one crowd that will say, you know, put a little bit of money into that and it'll be as good as new. And then you have another group of people over here that will often say, sure, that's been a piece of junk, you know, for 10 or 15 years, you know. I mean, we certainly have not ever put anybody at risk when we've been using the lift. And we also have a waiver that the boaters sign. They understand that this is an old travel lift, and they understood, I say, because in the past we have not used it since sometime in July.
Yeah.
And we do not plan to use it anymore. So you know, it's difficult because all of these things take a lot of time to figure out, get going, what are we going to do now, these kinds of things. So the travel lift was shut down by the Harbour Authority in July, and so since then, what we've been trying to do is to talk to as many people as we possibly can to see how Burgeo Harbour Authority might be able to new travel lift. It's very important for the travel lift to be here to help sustain our organization, but it's also really important to me, and I'm sure to a lot of the general public, that there be a travel lift somewhere on the coast that's accessible to people, because right now our understanding is that there are no travel lift services between Port Saunders on the Great Northern Peninsula, which is not quite to the top, but it's almost up to the top of the Northern Peninsula. Yep. Down as far as Fermuse, which is on the northeast Avalon. One time people could go to Fortune to put their boats up. My understanding is now that maybe you can, but it's more difficult to get into Fortune, so you may have to go to Fermuse and Glovertown. People are not going to make it there if they're in an emergency situation. No. You know, and so we are certainly impressing upon all government people that we've been talking to about the safety issues of it, as well as just having people be able to take their boats out for regular maintenance. Yes. So here's what has been happening in the past week or two. Our MP, Goody Utchings, has been in the area, and her and Michelle Felix came down and had a big chat with us, and we told Goody what was going on, and we had a conversation about whether we should be spending $10,000 or $15,000 on an inspection, or whether we should be going for a new machine or a new used machine, because these machines are anywhere from $275,000, maybe up to $400,000, maybe for a new one. Yeah. We have spoken to our MHA, Andrew Parsons, about our dilemma here, and he wants me to stay in touch with him to let him know how things are going. Our program officer, Vanessa Newman, we have a new program officer. She's with Small Craft Harbors in Corner Brook, and our area manager, John Duty, in St. John's, has been very supportive of the Harbour Authority of Burgeo overall, and they are supportive of the fact that we do need an initiative to try to get a new travel lift. The federal government hasn't really wanted to purchase big equipment like this and take on the responsibility of the liability, and that's why they didn't take responsibility years ago when the Harbour authorities were formed. Harbour Authority has letters saying if you bring this lift here or if you operate it here, it's not something federal government can support. And we knew that for a long, long time. But I mean, they are helping us in other ways. They maybe not be able to purchase us a new travel lift, but they can still help to guide us to where we might need to go. Vanessa Newman, our program officer, talked to me about a COA, as did Miss Utchings. And so a woman from a COA will be down to visit us in the next week or two, and her and our program officer and myself are starting to build a proposal for a new used lift or a new lift. We are also looking at possibilities of an alternative to a travel lift, because I was told by Bill Golding is the area chief of small craft harbors in St. John's, and when I was there last week in a meeting with him and the area manager, he suggested that in another harbor authority, they got together and discovered a new machine that can take boats out of the water without it being this big travel lift. It does cost $200,000, so it is a significant amount of money to raise. But because we know these things are slow going, we're going to put a proposal together looking at a new travel lift, and we're also exploring what our options are. About that, about the possibility of possibly changing some of the infrastructure of the Harbour Authority wharf and being able to maintain a different kind of piece of equipment to get the boats out of the water.
Yep. Perfect.
Another thing that we are doing towards this initiative is we have a letter that next week people can drop by the office, or they'll find it around town, that they can sign in support of us having a travel lift here as well. I mean, it is really, really important, because the travel lift, not just to bring those boats in here, but like, okay, if the boats get brought in on the lot, they might stay for the whole winter. So that's storage fees that we collect, which help to sustain us. When you bring your vessel ashore, hopefully you're going to come in here and buy the anti-fouling paint. You want gel coat if you need a few repairs, the fiberglass. We have all of those things that boaters need, the paintbrushes and rollers and everything that they need. These kinds of things sustain us in our efforts, the money for my salary is often because of different projects we might be doing, with some project supervision, looking after the students, doing all different kinds of things. I really try not to have my salary come out of Harbour Authority fees, because they are so small. We still charge only $65 a year for someone to berth their boat, or to put their boat up on the Furby's Harbour Slipway. Our fees are very low, and so the travel lift is really, really important. So we hope that everybody understands this in the community and will sign the letters that we do put out next week.
Perfect. Well, I think it's a good idea for the people to have to look at the litter, and I mean, if they see that it's going to impact them, they should really sign it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people here that spend time out in boats and sort of stuff like that, and so they've got to realize the importance of that, But in the meantime, Stephen, the travel lift is a really big deal. But we can't just close up our doors now that we don't have a travel lift. There's still things to be done. We still do have a shop that we're trying to let people know. We do have a few things here that they can come and buy, and we do have our berthage and our use of wharf wharf. You know, we have a fish buyer, Leonard Ball, out there, who's one of our customers, I guess you could call it. You know, and so there's still things to be done.
Yeah.
But most of the time now will be spent working on the proposal for the lift. And now coming in September, October, we will be holding a meeting, and we would be looking for board members. This is always a challenge at the Harbour Authority as well, and I'm not sure if that challenge is partly because of the lift. If you, for instance, were interested in joining the Harbour Authority in the past, maybe you wanted to join the Harbour Authority, but you weren't really sure about that lift. Did you want to become part of the responsibility for that lift? Because when you are on the board, you know, you are taking responsibility for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we need some people to join the board who might have a skill set in certain areas, like for instance business, someone to guide me in the business area of the Harbour Authority, somebody who knows finance, somebody who can help when I might have an issue with the bookkeeping or something like that. You know what I mean? We've always gone to someone else to help us with our year end. If there was a person on the board who had some financial background, they could help to do the year end. If you're joining a board, it's really important for you to bring something to the table. Even if you can just come and volunteer to open up the shop or to be around. I tell you, one of the people who's been first and foremost here at the Harbour Authority is Hubert Skinner. Since he joined our board, he has been a constant support to the Harbour Authority itself and to me. I remember when he first joined, he really wasn't interested in learning how to work that travel lift. And it was very hard to find anybody who wanted to learn how to do that. When we had a pharmacist here in town who was a travel lift operator, and he was a very positive man, and he said, you can do, and he said to me, you could do that, June, you could drive that thing. And I said, I don't want to. I'd rather do the paperwork and do the talking, as you can tell. And Hubert learned how to handle that lift and has done a very good job, and has been here not only doing travel lift work but doing sales and doing small maintenance jobs that had to be done, and just dropping by even when there wasn't anything for him to do, dropping by and saying, is there anything you need, kind of a thing, you know. Now we do have a couple of members. We do have a member, Ward Bellard, who is away. He's ill right now, and he's got some time off from the board. And there are other members, of course, that have come and gone, a sort of thing. But I did want to just say a thank you to Hubert for all of his support. And we do get a lot of support, you know, from the Government of Canada Small Craft Harbours, you know, from Town of Burgeo even, you know, they waive our property tax because we are, it's either the business tax or the property tax, because we are not for profit, and sometimes we have to look for a piece of equipment up there. Sometimes they look for a piece of equipment down here, but we would like to thank Town of Burgeo for their support, and all of the people who do come down and buy stuff off us and sort of stuff like that. And hopefully somebody will think about maybe running for the board. There's 4 to 6 meetings a year when something important is being decided, and of course these are very important times for us because of that travel lift.
Yes.
Would be, you know, we do have support letters from many of our visiting vessel people, and people often offer to write us a letter of support, and then sometimes, oh, well, you know, I'm not very good at writing letters, and so we devised a letter that anyone could sign with us. We, the undersigned, support the Harbour Authority of Burgeo in their lobby efforts to obtain a marine travel lift to ensure that the boating public has safe access for emergency lifting services, annual inspections, regular maintenance, and long-term storage. Services are provided but not limited to fishing and recreational vessels in the southern, western, and Straits area of Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And that is from Port Saunders right across to I do believe for Muse. For Muse, but the areas for southern, western, and straits would be more like the western region of what we'll see on our DFO map. The current marine travel lift is currently not operational. It was taken out of operation due to a dire need for repairs beyond the financial capacity of the Harbour Authority, a not-for-profit organization. The Harbour Authority, through the use of the travel lift, has provided various services to boaters from Port-au-Pass to Arbor-Breton, visiting vessels from mainland Canada and the United States, and provided upland service to local boaters as well as from Ontario, Quebec, and other parts of Newfoundland and Labrador. The marine travel lift in Burgeo is of vital importance since the nearest similar service is more than 200 nautical miles. Boaters have to travel to Port Saunders on the Great Northern Peninsula or to Fermuse on the Northeast Avalon. This not only increases costs due to time and travel, but also may contribute to potential environmental hazards and safety concerns. In addition, the marine travel lift in Burgeo sustains our Harbour Authority. It provides a fundamental service to users and is an essential element to the sustainability of the local Harbour Authority. We advocate for funding to replace our travel lift as it will benefit everyone. We implore federal, provincial, and municipal governments to work together to earmark funding that will allow us to replace our travel lift and restore this crucial service for the people of our region. It is a service that we cannot afford to lose. And as I'm reading that through to you, Stephen, I go back to my conversation with Ms. Hutchings. We were discussing at the time whether we should be seeking $10,000 to $15,000 to have an inspection done. And the board agreed with Ms. Hutchings that it is a very old lift. We probably would be, it would be probably better to spend the money in a different way than to have someone inspect it. And if we were going to put, we already know the wheels, axles, and rims are going to be $60,000 or $70,000 just for that. And so then if we start talking at the top, we're probably talking $100,000 or $150,000 just for repairs, which is, and if you can get a new used lift for $250,000 or $300,000, then why not go for a new lift or a new used lift which is certified and which would have a larger lifespan, longer lifespan than something. So that was in discussion, and that was part of the reason I was going to St. John's, was to look for the funding for an inspection. But since then, the board and with all of our advisors, we did decide that we would do the proposal and seek it for a better lift than what we have.
Perfect. So anyway, thank you so much for your information on the travel lift, and hopefully that, after this, that people will help in signing to letter and to get this process going, because most of the community needs the travel lift. I think they do, because we are an outport community that based on boats, and we are surrounded by water and everything else. And so anyway, good luck to the Harbour Authority and all the best.
And thank you very much. I hope people remember why the travel lift was put here in the first place. And it is to help the fishery, but I'm sure it was also to help any vessels get out of the water in an emergency purpose, which is a vital importance for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time too.
No problem. Thank you very much.